All right, so as I said before, my name is Nathan Bloomfield, and today I'll be presenting on runway and taxiway markings and signage. But firstly, a short recap of what we did last session. So, does anyone in the group or does anyone want to identify what type of engines, different engines these are? Just unmute or even
I
type your
see
response, please.
Javel Nicholson. Javel, if you want to unmute your mic, you can go ahead and answer.
Oh yeah, that was a mistake. Well, I'm
Oh,
here.
there's a
I'm here.
mistake.
Yeah.
All right, cool, no problem.
All right.
Uh,
All right, does anyone else have a answer?
All right, starting from top left, you have the V layout. Going across to the right, you have the flat layout. Below that is your radial engine, and next to that is your inline cylinder.
Okay, good. All right. So we get into what is a runway. A runway can be defined as a strip of hard land, water, sand, or snow which facilitates a safe arrival or departure of an aircraft. All right. So when designing the runway, the engineers and designers should mainly consider four things: length and width of the runway, the type of aircraft arriving and departing, the airport or airfield, wind patterns, and also the terrain. All right, so basically, with each type of runway marking scheme, that's the type of approach that would be available at that airport. So as you see here on a visual runway, so that's a visual approach, you'd execute this landing with a visual reference to the terrain. So you wouldn't have any um, ILS instruments, which is ILS stands for Instrument Landing System. You wouldn't have any of those instruments assisting you to guide the aircraft down to the runway safely. So you have a non-precision runway, which you then have a non-precision approach, which is a type of approach which utilizes lateral guidance but does not utilize vertical guidance. Right? So what that means is that it will guide you in a sense to where it will guide it to the heading, basically put you on the heading that the runway is on, but it wouldn't basically put you on a glide you right down to the runway safe. You have precision runway, which you'd have a precision approach, which is an instrument approach which uses both lateral and vertical guidance instruments. Um, have you guys ever watched a video and see where pilots in the cockpit have low visibility and they use ILS instruments to guide them down to a certain height? The runway is there enough, but they can't really see. But the ILS instruments guide the aircraft down to that certain height until they can possibly see. If they can see, they continue with the landing, but if they can't, they have to circle again or divert to another airport.
all right, Nathan. So I heard you made mention of a technical term just now, right?
Yes,
You said ILS.
yes.
Is Gianni on?
Hey guys, I'm here.
Great, Gianni. How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. All right. So Nathan made mention of a technical term just now that I want for you to explain for all of the persons that we would have on the chat that aren't exactly sure what that is. So he made mention of an ILS.
Yeah, so basically an ILS stands for Instrument Landing System. And all it basically is a station or a facility at the airport next to the runway. And it emits two signals which travel away from the runway expanding as it goes, like a cone. Think of it like a funnel. And basically the aircraft coming in on an approach to the runway will basically enter that cone and follow the electronic signals down to the ground. So as Nathan said, it provides lateral guidance through the localizer signal and vertical guidance through the glide slope signal.
All right, Gianni, thank you for that. Nathan.
Yeah.
Right, so you can continue. I just wanted to bring in one of the professionals to explain that technical term that you made mention of.
Okay. All right. So next we have, these are representations of what the visual runway, non-precision runway, and precision runway look like. So this is Tim to Pen, and this is Ian Fleming. This is an old picture. It's paved out now. It's more paved. And we have Donald Sangster International Airport.
Yeah, no.
So next we have the pre-thresholds. So firstly you have different types of pre-thresholds. You have the temporarily displaced and permanently displaced. So starting from the left, I'll identify what type of threshold it is and basically describe to you what it is. All right, so this threshold on the left is fit for movement. By the way, hold on. All right, so everyone is seeing this?
Yes, yes.
All right, so the pre-threshold is this area right here. So for this pre-threshold, it is fit for movement of an aircraft taking off. It's also available to aircraft landing in the opposite direction as a form of stopway runway extension. So basically this is saying that if you're taking off, right, and there's only probably one taxiway at that airport, you would basically have to come up the entirety of the runway, come to the end here, and you'd basically be all right to take off. But aircraft wouldn't, when they're coming in, they wouldn't be able to land, come in low and land in this area. It's not suited. So next we have by the way, this is a temporarily displaced. This one is a permanently displaced. And this displaced threshold, you can identify by arrows. So you can identify permanently displaced thresholds by these arrows. This type of pre-threshold means it's fit for aircraft taking off, but not available for aircraft landing. It's similar to this one before. So next to this, we have another temporarily displaced threshold, and this area is totally unfit for aircraft movement, hence the 2 X's, right? So lastly, you have a blast pad or overrun area. This area can be used by aircraft landing from the opposite direction as a form of stopway. However, it is not suitable for aircraft taking off.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why would, like, say for the first picture, why would you need to displace the threshold of the runway? What would be a reason to do that?
Gianni, would you want to answer that question?
Yeah, so there's a number of reasons. One of the first ones I could think of, for example, is if there's construction being done at the end of the runway. For example, let's say there's some buildings being constructed, or maybe there is a mountain, high ground at the end of the runway. It would not be practical to have the full length of the runway, because the jet blast from the aircraft engines could damage the building site or the construction area. So if you could imagine, there's some buildings at the end of the runway and an aircraft's taking off. It could, in some circumstances, depending on the type of displaced threshold, you could use the full length. However, it's typically based on the performance calculations. You would always use you could use the displaced threshold for takeoff, but if it's a temporary one, I do not believe you can. I'd have to double check that, but that's the first thing that comes to mind typically.
Yeah, and while you're here, can I ask one more question about that last picture too? They said that that's an overrun pad. Is that the same as an EMAS?
Is it the same as a what?
EMAS, I saw something about that.
Oh, so basically the EMAS is a type of technology where, so the overrun area, basically what that is, for example, it's typically used in an emergency. So let's say the aircraft's accelerating down the runway, and you achieve a certain speed called V1, which is at or above V1, you have to continue the takeoff. Think of V1 as, for those of you that drive, imagine you're on a 2-lane road. So you swerve out of your lane to overtake a vehicle, but there's a truck coming towards you in the opposite lane. As you're accelerating to try overtake the car, V1 is, for an example, is the speed at which you realize you have to continue, or you come back. You go back behind the car. Now, either if you have to abandon a takeoff at that speed, you should have enough, it's calculated that you'd have enough runway to stop the aircraft safely on the runway. In certain situations, that will put you into the overrun area, which means you'll still be on the paved surface. However, it's not part of the runway you would normally use as part of your calculations. And the EMAS, I think you mentioned, it's a relatively new technology. Basically, what that is I'm not sure if you all have seen, some years ago, there was a Southwest Airlines 737, which I believe it was on landing. They had an emergency. I think the runway was slippery, and they skidded off the runway end. What that basically is the concrete or the material they used to make the runway at the end or the overrun. It's very fragile, so that the wheels sink into it. Think of it like shells. So the weight of the aircraft basically crushes into this material, and it brings the aircraft to a stop. That way it doesn't go through the fence and onto a road at the end of the runway, for example.
Interesting, thank you.
All right.
All right, Gianni, thanks for that.
All right. So thresholds. The runway thresholds are markings across the runway that denote the beginning and the end of the designated space for landing and takeoff under non-emergency conditions, as Gianni said. So they also indicate to pilots who are unfamiliar with the runway, the width of the runway. So this can be calculated by the amount of stripes on the threshold. So when you have 4 stripes, the runway is basically 60 feet wide, and 6, 75 feet, 8, 100 feet, 12, 150 feet, and 15, 200 feet. Right. So designation markers. All runways are numbered based on the compass bearing in which the runway is oriented. For example, if you stood down this runway, you'd be facing exactly 272 degrees northwest. giving the name runway 27. If the heading is not exact, just like the example before, so the heading is 272 degrees, they would basically round the number off to the nearest tenth. So if I'm approaching the active runway at, if I'm approaching the active runway at Donald Sangster with a heading of 072 degrees, the runway would actually be numbered 07. So as you can see here, I have our runway heading 072, but it's named runway 07. And in some countries, such as the United States, they remove the leading 0, making it runway 7. So at larger airports, you may have multiple runways which share the same heading. These are known as parallel runways. It would be confusing to pilots as to which runway they should take off or land on. Therefore, parallel runways are identified with letters L for left, R for right, C for center. That's if there's a third runway. So as you can see here, runway 28 left and runway 28 right. Center line. This is a long dash white line which runs along the entire length of the runway. This aids pilots in identifying the center of the runway and also lining up correctly. Alright, so anybody has any questions so far? Alright, so the touchdown zone. These markings identify basically the landing zone or the touchdown zone for.
Excuse me, Nathan.
Yes.
Can you kindly speak up a little? It's difficult for some of us to hear you.
All right. So these markings identify the touchdown zone for landing operations. This is usually the first point of contact between a landing aircraft and the runway. These markings consist of groups of 1, 2, and 3 rectangular bars symmetrically arranged pairs about the runway centerline. So these markings here. So beyond this point, it would be basically the optimal landing zone for the aircraft. So they are coded to provide distance information in 500 feet increments. So what that means is basically you'd see these every 500 to 1,000 feet. So from the threshold here to here would be 500 feet and going along. The aiming points. So the aiming point marking serves as a visual aiming point for a landing aircraft. These two rectangular markings consist of a broad white stripe located on each side of the center line and approximately 1,000 feet from the landing threshold. So as I was saying earlier with the ILS instruments, I don't know who can see these, but these are some lights. They are called PAPI lights, and they basically coordinate with the instrument landing system to guide the aircraft to the aiming point, basically. So runway distance remaining signs. So runway distance remaining signs have a black or red background with a white numeral inscription and may be installed along one or both sides of the runway. The number on the sign indicates the distance in thousands of feet of the landing runway remaining. The last sign with the number 1 will be located at least 950 feet from the runway end. So as you can see here, this aircraft is probably landing or taking off, and they have 5,000 feet left of remaining runway. And this would basically mean you have 3,000 feet wherever it is. So high-speed exit, typically found at busier airports, high-speed or rapid exit taxiways allow aircraft to vacate the runway at higher speeds. Having this type of taxiway in place allows for an aircraft to leave the runway quicker than permitting another aircraft to land or take off. Okay, so any questions thus far? Just indicate.
So somebody in the chat asking what does the 27. This is kind of going back to the diagram that you had mentioned, well, that you had showed us before of the runway. Somebody was asking what the number 27 on the runway means.
Well, this is a designation marker. So this is the compass, what the runway is heading, the runway heading.
Right. So pretty much it's a compass direction, and that is what the runway is situated in, or that's the direction the runway is situated in.
So what is a taxiway? A taxiway is a path for aircraft at an airport connecting runways with aprons, hangars, terminals, and other facilities. They mostly have a hard surface such as asphalt or concrete, although at smaller general aviation airports sometimes use gravel or grass. So you have the center line, and this is a solid yellow line, which marks the center of the taxiway, and this is basically the line that pilots want to stay on while taxiing. And we have the taxiway edge lines. These lines define the edge of the taxiway, and there are two types of those. You have the continuous, and beyond this line is a paved surface other than full strength taxiway, and it is not intended for use by aircraft. So in this case, you have a paved surface beyond, but normally you wouldn't have a paved surface beyond it. This is an example of a larger airport. So this is just for, this is not in every case, basically. And then we have dashed. And in some airports, you may see dashed edge lines. These sometimes lead to a flight line or tarmac. Therefore, pilots are allowed to pass over the taxiway edge. So for this one up here, the first one, continuous, you wouldn't really want to go across because it would be pavement that is not suited for aircraft or grass. And for this one, it's really where like a flight line, like as you saw in the, as you saw in this one, it leads to a tarmac or a flight line, as you see here. So we have the taxiway shoulder markings. Cleared graded area around the taxiway with at least 25 width, 25, at least a 25 width, 25 foot width. This area assists the pilot in making short turns. Beyond these shoulders may have the appearance of a full strength pavement, but they are not intended for use by an aircraft and may be unable to support the aircraft. So again, beyond these double lines, these double continuous lines, it's not really suited for your aircraft. So it might look hard, but it's not really hard. It can't support the weight of your aircraft. So
Wait, I have a question.
yeah,
Wait, why is there a line sticking out of the? I see lines that are sticking out of the line on the edge. What are those?
those are just basically delineate what type of mark it is. It's basically a stairway zone.
Okay, thank you.
Right, so I have a taxiway holding point. Taxiway holding position marking consists of a single dash yellow line. Pilots are expected to hold short of this marking as instructed by an air traffic controller. If no marking is present, a pilot should stop the aircraft at a point which provides adequate clearance from other aircraft. So this you'll also find more in a busier airport where you'd have multiple aircraft on the taxiway or the flight line, and some aircraft would need to stay at a particular area until the traffic in a certain area has cleared up. So they would basically, for example, they would say 6 Yankee Juliet Romeo, you're to hold at holding point Alpha Bravo 1, for example. So you come while coming up to this area, you see the sign and you basically stay at this area until further instructed. So moving on, you have the ILS hold point. So normally, a pilot is reliant on his ILS system for, hold on. All right. So normally, a pilot is reliant on his ILS system for ILS approaches to improve visibility. The radio signals sent out by ILS ground equipment can be disturbed if an aircraft or ground vehicle is too close to the runway. Therefore, an ILS hallmark is positioned further from the runway to prevent aircraft or ground vehicles from interfering with ILS ground equipment or approaching planes. So these will be at, again, airports that have ILS guidance, ILS instruments. And when we have low visibility, you wouldn't want planes taxiing all the way up to the runway. So these are positioned a bit further from the runway so it doesn't interfere with approaching planes or so forth.
All right, Nathan. So asked in the chat just now, not sure if you saw that, where I was asking if everybody can hear clearly. One person saying no, and another person saying more or less they can hear what is going on. So maybe I'm not sure if something is wrong with your mic or it's a sound problem from your end, but would you be able to do something to get your audio a bit louder so that everybody can hear clearly?
All right, so is everyone hearing me a bit louder?
There's someone in their hand up. Can we have that person ask the question?
Can runways be used in both directions?
Pardon?
Can a runway be used in both directions?
Yes,
Or is it?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the markings that are on one side would also be on the other side?
Yes. So hold on, let me show you.
Can I comment on that, or?
Yes, you can.
So the runways can be used in both directions. This is Damar, by the way. But at some airports, like in San Diego, you have the example where runway 27 is a displaced threshold. So it would have different markings than runway 09 on the other end. And to keep in mind, because the displaced threshold is due to the permanent buildings and structures and elevation that's in place, sometimes performance-wise, you can't take off in both directions. So you have to be mindful of your weight and operational capability going into some airports, because sometimes you are weight limited in some directions where there's high terrain on the other end.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, thanks for that, Damar.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Let's say there is no like obstructions on either side of the runway. Why would I want to use one side of the runway more than the other side?
All right, so as we all know, aircrafts take off into the wind. So depending on the direction of the wind, that's the preferred runways, the different side that you want to take. Sorry. So that's it.
All right.
All right. So now I have runway hole markings. These markings indicate where aircraft must stop in approaching a runway. That's if they don't have clearance. They consist of 4 yellow lines, 2 solid and 2 dashed, spaced 6 or 12 inches apart and extending across the width of the taxiway. That's our runway is a mistake. Sorry for that. So if if my aircraft is here, right? I would need clearance to, this is a runway, this is the entrance to a runway. So I would definitely need clearance to even go on the runway. Even though I don't see anybody on the approach or on the runway, I would definitely need clearance to go in this area. But if you're coming from this side, you'd already have clearance. So that's why I see the dash. You're basically, here's a go ahead, so you can just pass. So when you see the straight, the continuous line here, it's basically stopped or wait for clearance, basically. All right, so next we have the enhanced center line. The enhanced center line marking consists of a parallel line of yellow dashed and dash lines on either side of the normal taxiway center line. This marking indicates that you are approaching an active runway and you should proceed with caution. The taxiway center lines are enhanced for a maximum of 100 feet prior to a runway holding position marking. And these, you really find them in busier airports. Yeah. So any questions? All right.
Hold on, Nathan. Recapping a bit, right? So I wanted for the purpose of the room, for those of us here in the Zoom meeting that wouldn't know, you had made mention of the pilot needing to stay on the taxiway center line. I would want to bring Gianni in on this question. So just would want to know why is it so important for the pilot to keep on the center line, both on the taxiway and also on the runway. I see Amri with his hand up as well. So we can take your question after Gianni goes, Amri.
Yeah, guys. So basically, you know, when you start up the aircraft, you would be following instructions to get to the runway, either from the runway to the gate or the parking area, or vice versa if you're departing. And the center line of the taxiway and the runway is just an industry standard, similar to how when you're driving, you would stay in your lane. There is not a specific you know, marking on the road, because obviously you would be just the line separates the lanes, but on the taxiway you would stay on the yellow line, and this ensures that you will be your landing gear will not be going onto the grass, etc. As Nathan pointed out earlier, if you are turning onto the runway, the markings at the edge of the paved area, they are not as strong as the main taxiway itself. So if you're in a heavy aircraft, what you could have is on the edge of the taxiway, the asphalt or the pavement material could be weaker, so it could be damaged below you. So it's just advising you caution for those areas. And I think Amri, you had a question?
Yes. Well, what do you do if you're taking off and there's a crosswind? Like you were saying that you have to take off into a headwind, but what if there's only one way in one direction and you have to take off and there's a crosswind, or even a tailwind?
So that's a great question. 99.9% of the time, air traffic control would designate the runway in use as the active runway. So I know earlier we were talking about the runway numbering. The best way to describe it is if you have a compass, everyone knows what a compass is. If you stand up at the end of the runway, you know that the compass needle points to the North Pole or to magnetic north. So we have the coordinates north, south, east, and west, and everything in between. Whatever direction the runway is running, if you're standing up at the end of it, the direction of the runway, whether it is 090 degrees or 263 degrees, etc., you would round the runway number to that. For example, if the heading of the runway is 262 degrees, it will be runway 26, meaning on a map, that's the direction or the direction the runway is going. So you would always take off most of the time with a headwind. Typically, the tower would advise you if there is a tailwind component, and you could request to change sides. There's some coordination involved, but most of the time you'd have a headwind. If you have a crosswind, whether it's from your left or from your right, whether it would be a matter of, for example, let's say you're taking off runway 09, which would be pointing directly east, and you have a wind coming directly from the north, which would be coming from your left side, or directly from the south, which would be from your right side. You would stay on the center line, and you would just make a correction to keep the aircraft going straight down the runway. It's up to you whether you would like to request to take off from the opposite runway. But in a condition like that, you would always choose what's best for the performance of the aircraft and what's the most economical choice as well. And I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Jen.
No worries.
Hold on. All right, so next we have.
Right, so seeing here in the chat, a few persons adding to staying on the center line. So in addition to the landing gear, maintaining clearance with the outskirts of the taxiway, there is also the issue of wingspan clearance. So for those big airplanes, for example, the Airbus A380 or the Boeing 747, those are the two behemoths in the aircraft industry. Special consideration for clearance of the wing, because the wingspan is so wide. Staying on the center line, especially for those airplanes, would guarantee clearance of the wings on either side from obstacles or from hitting into other airplanes, etc. I also saw where De Leon 747 asked, what's the maximum headwind crosswind that on average that an aircraft can land in? So I don't want to take a shot at that question, where I would say that the answer to that is it varies. There are different weight classes of airplanes, as you know. So, for example, a Cessna 152, which is an extremely light two-seater airplane, the maximum for that would greatly differ from, let's say, a Boeing 747, for example, which would greatly be able to accept more wind or more intensity of wind. So the answer for that is it varies with where that is concerned. All right, Nathan, back to you.
All right, thanks. So next we have vehicle roadway markings. The vehicle roadway markings are used when necessary to define.
I would just like to quickly acknowledge that I see Spike's iPad. If I'm correct, that is Captain Jason Spike, the flight instructor.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, sir, Spike. Nice to have you here.
Yeah, sorry, I was paying attention to something else, but yes, I'm here. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, man,
definitely.
I'm here. I am here.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Not
Any
a problem.
contributions you can make as a flight instructor, we would happy for the youngsters to learn something from you.
Definitely not a problem. Just call on me if you guys have any questions.
All right, great. Thanks, everyone. So, Nathan, you're saying about vehicle roadway markings.
Yes. These are used when necessary to define a pathway for vehicle operations on or crossing areas that are also intended for aircraft. These markings consist of a white solid line to delineate each edge of the roadway and a dashed line to separate lanes within the edges of the roadway. So you find these basically at every large airport such as JFK or Miami International. So these.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When you say roadway, it means I can drive my car and do like a taxi service on that road and pick like a illegal taxi service. I can run like a robot taxi on that road, or do I need permission?
Sometimes you cannot do that.
Oh, so I can't run I can sell bag juice on that road though?
So that roadway that roadway is for airport vehicles. So where your robot taxi aspirations are concerned, no, you wouldn't be able to do a taxi service on those roadways.
Yeah, no.
Different streets.
All right, Nathan.
All right, yeah. So, all right. Next we have taxiway and runway signage. So, airport guidance signs provide direction and information to taxiing aircraft and airport vehicles. Smaller airports may have fewer new signs, relying instead on airport diagrams and charts. So there are two classes of signage at airports with several types of each. So we have the operational guidance signs and the mandatory instruction signs. So on the left is the operational guidance sign, and on the right is the mandatory instruction sign. So we're going to get more into this. So the operational guidance, taxiway location signs. These have a black background with a yellow inscription. The inscription is a designation of the taxiway and on which the aircraft is located. Yeah. These signs are installed along taxiways either by themselves or in conjunction with a direction sign or runway holding position signs. So here we can see an example. So basically the black background with the yellow inscription will basically tell you on what taxiway you are. So for example, this is saying that you're on taxiway Delta, and for this taxiway, if you can see over here, that would be taxiway or hotel, and you identify that by the left. So, all right. Taxiway direction signs have a yellow background and black characters, which identifies the designation or intersecting taxiways. Arrows indicate the direction of turn that would place the aircraft on the designated taxiway, right? So, and also the secondary operational guidance sign or marking are the whole sharp bars, which you already went through.
Hold on 1 minute, Nathan. Maria had a question. I'm going to unmute him now so he can ask.
Right.
how do all of these signs work when there's very low visibility?
Well, they have a light. They have a light behind it.
And what about the lines on the actual pavement?
Yeah, they're also lit.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have mandatory instruction signs, right? So mandatory instruction signs are white and red.
Before you continue, Nathan, just one quick point. On I'm not too sure who asked that question just now regarding low visibility, but just to add to your point, there are some airports where ATC has basically what they call low visibility operation, where they'll basically provide a vehicle to pretty much guide it to the airport, or they'll give you like small clearances so that you can make progress on 100 feet at a time, 200 feet, or 500 feet at a time. So that's another point that I just wanted to make as it relates to low visibility operations.
No problem. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Right. These show entrances to runways or critical areas. Vehicles and aircraft are required to stop at these signs until the control tower has given clearance to proceed. So here you would see this at the extreme of a taxiway when you're entering a runway, or when you're at the whole point marking on a taxiway, you basically see this, and this, yeah, as I said, it shows that it designates the runway extremity, and this shows that you're approaching runway 25. Right. So the next one is basically if you're at the second, runways have multiple taxiways. So if you're basically at the middle of the runway and you want to basically cross or so forth, you'd see this sign that basically tells you're crossing runway 25 or 07, depending on the direction. Right? For the rest of these four, I'll leave for a later sorry. 27 and 09 would basically tell you that the runway is there and also the direction that it is in. And for these four, I'll leave for a later instrument landing system video, right? And then after that, you have a no entry sign, which indicates that that area is prohibited. And after that, we have approach or departure surface holding position. And this indicates to a pilot a runway holding position that has been established for the protection of approach or departure surface OLS to our runway. And so, Captain Spike, could you further speak on this?
Sorry, what was the question you said?
No, for the 25 approach, at the last sign at the bottom. Yeah, could you further explain to those what it is? What does it mean?
It's basically just a sign indicating where, like, pretty much for this one, for example, for this one here, it's just basically saying that you're entering the approach zone, or if you enter that zone, you might be interfering with like an airplane that would be on an approach, for example. So it's basically, as I said, it's just a sign indicating pretty much where you're approaching for the most part. So for the one on top that says, for example, 25, it just says 25. It's basically just saying that you're entering runway 25. For the one that says 25 approach is basically saying that you're entering a zone that you might be you might end up causing interference to an airplane that is on the 25 approach, for example. So it's just basically, again, signage to indicate where you are and
where you're going.
Can I ask a further question on that? What's the difference between that and ILS hold?
Usually ILS hold is really for ILS holding positioning, and usually the one that says approach is usually not necessarily for ILS, but for a different type of instrument.
So like a VOR or an
basically,
ADF?
exactly, basically.
not an ADF, an NDB, because you can't, from my knowledge, you can't interfere with an RNAV approach because they're from the satellites, right?
Yeah, that's correct. RNAV is a totally different setup and system.
And LPV approaches and things like that use WASP, which
Yeah,
is
those
just
are
more.
all those are all satellite based. Yeah.
All right.
All right, Spike. Thanks for that.
All right, so next
Yeah,
we
no
have
problem.
more examples. So this is basically saying you're on taxiway Delta and taxiway Bravo is going across. And for this one at the bottom, it's a surface painting taxiway location and designator. So it's saying that taxiway Bravo is straight ahead and you have Alpha to the right. Right? This is another mandatory instruction sign. This is saying that you're on taxiway Tango, and you have basically runway 18 and 36 in front of you. This one down here, as you can see again, it says Charlie is to the left. Alpha is, I don't know how to explain, it's to your right, and Charlie is to your right as well.
Nathan, we have a question from Amri Hanson. You ready to take it? Amri.
You can answer this when you finish this slide. But my question was, when I'm at the airport, I see this vehicle that attaches to the front wheel of the aircraft. What exactly is the point of that?
Ask a question again.
When I'm at the airport, I see a vehicle that attaches to the front wheel of the aircraft and like tows it. But what exactly is the point of that?
That's the
Right.
tow.
Right. Could I take that one, Nathan?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So that's called a tug. So it's an airplane tug, right? Or some persons would call it a tow. Now, the reason why you need a tug or a tow is because the wheels of the airplanes aren't powered. So, for example, in your car, the front wheels, the engine gives power to the front wheels, and then that spins the wheels, and that's how you achieve forward movement. Now, in aircraft, the wheels actually don't produce any power. So the forward movement of the aircraft would come from the aircraft's propulsion system, that being the prop for the aircraft, for aircraft that have props, or from the jet engine for the aircraft that have jet engines. Now, the thing is, the aircraft, I want to say, it doesn't have a reverse gear. So the wheels of the aircraft, they don't possess the ability to move forward or backward. So in order to get the aircraft to move backward, especially off of the parking stand, one would need a tow truck or a tug to attach to the front wheel of the airplane and basically push it back off of the parking stand. Our version of that at Tinsipen isn't really as high tech. We have a tow bar, but it's pretty much something that we use to achieve the same outcome. So for the lighter airplanes, you're able to push them by hand. Now to steer them, you would have to attach what we call a tow bar to the front wheel of the airplane, and then what we do is we just push and pull them as we see fit with our hands. That's for the smaller airplanes. But for those large airplanes, you definitely need some more horsepower to move them around, which that's where the tow or the tug would come in.
So you don't need it when you're going forward, though, only when you're reversing.
In some cases, they're used when you're going forward. Like, for example, if you're gonna move an airplane to get it fueled at like a fuel farm, instead of having to start the airplane up and taxi it to the fuel farm, some operators would opt to use a tug to basically pull the airplane to the fuel farm. In some instances, pilots may not be available to come and do the refueling and stuff like that. So that is a way that you'd use it in a forward moving application. But for the most part, when the aircraft is going forward, you wouldn't need a tug because the aircraft is able to move forward under its own power, but not so much. In some cases, you're able to move backwards under the aircraft's power, but that isn't really a common practice outside of certain situations.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I see the chat lighting up there. But Nathan, you can continue.
All right. All right, so
I just joined it.
all right. So here we have an example where we have a whole chart line, which is it's given out alpha 1, and it's basically telling it alpha 1 is where you are. That's the name of the where you are. That's the location, and you have the designator, which is Bravo. Right? This is telling you that Bravo is to your right, and up here is where we have the ILS whole chart. So Jaffas, earlier you were saying that. Repeat your question from earlier, please, Jaffas.
I was asking what's the difference between an ILS hold and an approach hold thing. Runway 27 approach sign.
So this is what it would basically look like in the real world. So it's a bit further, as I said before, from the normal runway hold marking.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, and I see it's like away from where the signal from the localizer would be.
Yeah, right. So under low visibility conditions, aircraft will hold here at this ILS hold mark until they're further instructed. Like if they'll get straight cleared for takeoff from this hold marking. Right. All right. So I have an uncle who is an aircraft technician, Craig Brown. He wants to add some stuff, add some information. So I'll give him the floor. So you have the floor, Uncle.
Oh, hello, everybody. Well, I wanted to comment on the tow bar tow chapter, but I mean that has passed already. So just whenever I have a question or a comment to make, I'll then contribute at that time. Thank you.
You can still make that comment. It would be appreciated.
Oh, I was trying to sign in when the information was passed about the tow tractor. The thing is this, with like for major airports, even at normally, tow tractors normally use a tow bar associated with the tractor. But larger airport like JFK and probably Miami, like in the States, you have tow barless tractors. Surprisingly, I heard the captain spoke about the A380. In JFK, they have tractors that can actually lift the nose gear wheel off the ground and push the aircraft from the gate. And so saying that tow bar and tow tractors come in different weight class and size, and so the airline would not just go and buy any tractor, even though it seems appropriate. Tow tractors are designed per type of aircraft. So that is something that I just wanted to add to the tow bar issue, the tow tractors and tow bar.
Interesting, thank you.
All right, Craig, thank you for that. Always good to have another aviation professional in the wings. So we really appreciate your input in whatever we have going on.
Yes.
All right. Afternoon, everyone. I'd like to add something, if that's okay.
You can go ahead.
All right. So in reference to the chat, I'm seeing where persons are saying that most airports have banned the use of reverse thrust to push back the aircraft. I don't think it's banned, or maybe it is, but there are multiple reasons why it isn't used. One of them being, even though you don't expect FOD to really be on the tarmac, because that's one of the safety things that persons look out for. FOD and remove them as soon as they see them and all that. That's one of the reasons you would want, while reversing, the engine suck up FOD in the engine. Another reason, and also the smaller aircrafts, for example at Manley, are allowed to use reverse thrust, like the Saab 340s and the turboprops are allowed to use reverse thrust to move back the aircraft. So it's not really banned per se.
All right, Fabian, thanks.
Wait, what was the first reason that you had said?
FOD, FOD, that's foreign object debris, sorry.
And
so you
what?
want the engine to pick up foreign object debris in the engine while using the reverse thrust.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Right, and we have Sherry adding that the U.S. military aircraft use reverse thrust as well. So Nathan,
Yeah.
Nathan, if you want to continue.
All right. So, any final questions?
All right, I have a fun one. I want to pose this question to the group. It's open to either enthusiast or professional. So what I wanted to know is, what is the difference between a runway and a taxiway?
Can I answer?
Sure.
I run. Never mind.
Can I answer?
I was going to say something about movement areas, but I just realized. No.
It may add. Say it. It may add. Say it.
Oh,
No, we're hearing.
oh. So the question was the difference between the runway and the taxiway?
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
In essence, the runway is used for takeoff and landing, right? And the taxiway is but no taxiway is a runway. I mean, the taxiway is used to guide the pilot to the runway. So I don't know if you guys got that. So the runway is where the aircraft lands and take off, but the taxiway is what guides it, you know?
Yeah, to and from the tarmac.
Yeah, so whether it's from the hangar to the gates, so the taxiway is used to guide the aircraft to anywhere on the airport, basically. Engine run-up spots, the gates,
yeah,
the hangars, you know, everything.
Yes.
But the runway is just strictly for
takeoff.
The runway is just strictly for takeoff and landings. I mean, I've done high power runs on runways before because that's where the spots are available sometimes in the night. But they depends on the airport. They will use like a spot on the runway. Am I the only one not hearing? Hello, are you guys hearing?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay. Because Brian said he wasn't
Yeah,
hearing.
Byron, you might want to turn on your audio because everybody else is hearing. Well, you wouldn't be able to hear that. So let me send a message in the chat. You can
Well, yeah,
continue.
yep. So I know for Pearson have a couple high power run-up spots on the runways. It's usually like the beginning or the end of the runways, not usually in the middle. And they would usually use some taxiways as a run-up spot, but yeah. So I guess that's mostly the difference between them, mainly the difference between them.
All right, cool, thanks. So I noted that Sherik made a comment in the chat where he said all runways are taxiways, but no taxiways are runway. So
Sure.
the second question I wanted to add on top of the first one that I asked is, are you saying that you wouldn't be able to use a taxiway for landings any at all?
Norris.
I mean,
This question is open to anybody, by the way. See, Amri with a question as well, but can a taxiway be used as a runway? That is my question to the group.
And the answer is yes.
Can I add something?
Can I make a comment?
but isn't the pavements like made out of different different material?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Helicopters land on taxiways, don't they? At Tension Pen, they do.
I mean, I've seen helicopters landed on uncontrolled aprons before.
Right, but how about fixed wing aircraft?
Fixed wing.
You should have been more specific with the question. So fixed wing aircraft.
To be honest, I've never seen it with my own eyes. You know.
Harrison, I think what's his name? Harrison Ford. I think he landed on a taxiway accidentally.
Yeah, he did.
And then the controller got mad at him, and then he got mad at the controller, and then he got a number to call, and then he did it again a while later, or something like that.
Listen, if the taxiway available for me to land with my small plane and a big plane broke down on it, someone could write me up after. But really and truly, the taxiway is not designed for landing because the weight of the aircraft impacting the taxiway has a lot to do with the design. Yeah. Whereas the runway is the runway is more reinforced and more robust to treat landing. And where it's wider and more clear of obstacle, where on a taxiway is narrow and have lights and people driving and all sorts of things happening. So really and truly, while you should not be landing on a taxiway under any circumstances but an emergency, a lot of things have to be taken into consideration because you don't want to be landing a 747 on Manly taxiway.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Be ideal.
I mean, but if a 747 stuck in the middle of Manly going in with a 182, you could try a taxiway landing.
But I don't think you want to try that with Cherokee. You know?
But I could also say, and this is Damar again, military application. I was in the military for a bit. We had specific taxiways that we could land on, and we would advise the tower, and we would it would be a requirement to practice landing on those taxiways. So we could do it in a military application. To land on taxiways. So I don't know if the group focuses on some of the things that are done in the military. I know we can, kind of bend the rules a little bit more, but there are specific taxiways designed for takeoffs and landings.
They're teaching you how to land on roads for invasion. They're just practicing. Anyway, we have someone all the way from Colombia as MacBook Air. Maybe he could unmute his mic and say hello to the group. Are you there? Maybe our Colombian friend is shy. And we see Katrin. Where's Katrin? There was a female here named Katrin. Could you say hello and tell us about yourself?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I live in Jamaica and I'm a high school student in grade 12, and I would love to pursue a career in aviation.
Which high school are you in?
St. Andrew High School for Girls.
Love to hear that. I love to hear that.
What did you say?
And I love hearing that because I was also from St. Andrew High.
Oh, hi.
Okay, wow.
Me too.
Yeah.
small world. I see.
Nice to see fellow aviators.
All right, man, let's give the female a 5-minute form to say hello to each other and get there. Female aviation, camaraderie up. There is someone else. There is Carmen. Is that male or female? I don't know. I just see Carmen, K-R-M-I-N. See Kim R.
Carmen.
Jaffe, could you unmute them and let they say hi?
Everybody can unmute by themselves, I believe. But who exactly?
Ladies, you can unmute yourself, and say hi. Carmen, Kim R.
Hello.
Hello.
All right, I guess they're shy.
No, I was having problems unmuting. Kim R here.
Could you tell us about yourself quickly?
Okay, yeah, no problem. So I have zero experience with aviation, to be quite honest. But was just very interested, and Richard invited me to this meeting, and I'm here with my little brother. He's quite interested in aviation, so we're just listening in.
Could I correct your statement? You now have one
Sure,
hour
go ahead.
experience. You now have 1 hour experience in aviation.
Yeah, that's true. So I can add that to my resume.
Yeah. Taxiways.
Yes. Runways and taxiways, right?
Yeah.
I still don't get why you can't operate illegal taxis on the taxiway.
I don't understand why uptown youth will never catch a taxi in your life. One drive taxi on the runway.
I'm not. That's not. Oh my.
You can't.
I could make a lot of money doing that. Like
no, Jaffas.
You definitely would make a lot of money doing that.
Tell them to jump out to the emergency exit and get in the pro box because it takes too long to go through immigration. Just jump the fence and stuff.
I just want to hello. I just want to comment on that. Even though it's maybe a bit of a joke. All vehicles that operate on airport, especially large ones, you need special plates and authorization, just like you need registration to operate in Jamaica. And some countries, the same thing for airports. Yeah, vehicles operating on the apron and the taxiways and the driveways here. You have the vehicle has to meet minimum inspection requirement to say that it can operate safely on the airport. And so you find that some airports actually design roadways that the vehicle has to drive on. Especially now in Mali, they're very strict with that. Irrespective of the airport being very clear with airplanes, you have to adhere and stick to the driving lanes the vehicle must operate on. So it's a very serious issue,
Right. Yeah, we see a great learning moment coming from the lighthearted stuff that was said just now. I see Kareem in the chat asking if he could make a comment. Sure, Kareem, you can go ahead and unmute your mic and make that comment.
Okay, just to add.
Sir Spike as well saying that the driver has to meet a specific requirement as well.
The driver and the vehicle. And the vehicle,
right, just to add to what you were saying. So Kareem, you can go ahead.
All right, good evening, everyone. Just to add my bit from Montego Bay, the MBJ airport, what he's saying, I can verify that it does take place in Mobay. Both vehicle and driver have to go to the training, vehicle has to go to the inspection, and the sticker, just like you have your license disc on your car, is placed on each vehicle.
Yeah.
Is there also like a restriction that you have to have like beacon lights and high vis strips and all of that stuff?
All of that. Yeah, I also have all that.
Right.
So from the air marshal vehicles to whatever vehicle is authorized to enter. For example, I to work on GB, which is the refueling plant. So each one of the refueling vehicles have to have an authorized vehicle from where GBR from JARS, which is Jamaica Aircraft Refueling Service. They have to have their lights, have to have their strips, and authorized plate as well.
Right, right. And there's a speed limit also, and the speed limit is very important. You have to adhere to the speed limit for those vehicles. But the question was asked about taxiway. Taxiway, just as if you notice, Nathan was highlighting that there are mandatory signs, and you notice that the mandatory signs are in red and white. And red normally mean danger stop, right? The fact that they're in red mean don't even think about going there, because there can be punitive penalties going there. And so the issue about taxiways is also forbidden. There are cases where drive lanes cross taxiways, and so you're trained as a driver operating a vehicle on the ramp, crossing a taxiway, how to communicate to the pilot, especially at night when you have your light on. Also, you're trained to know what to do if it's very, very poor visibility. When you have drive lanes crossing taxiways. And these are, and you're trained well, especially at larger airports, how to deal with these issues. Most of these things we don't face at normally or Mobi, but other airports, larger airports, you have to be very aware.
Yes, not like an airport or JFK, you don't want to be driving on the road in low visibility, and an A380 just comes out of nowhere.
Right, because at JFK, everybody know JFK. I don't know how many people know. The JFK, the terminal is in a loop basically. So you can drive lane goes around the airport, and then you have a taxiway outside of that drive lane. So from the runway on the taxiway and then onto the terminal, and the drive lanes is in between there. So you're always crossing taxiway. You're always. So the signs that are there, there are always a stop signs along the way, right? To tell you, listen, stop and look before you move. But and also in JFK, it is so serious that if you break the rule there, you're issued what they call of BOR, right? And if you get 3 of those, don't even think about working at JFK anymore. That's it. And maybe you won't be able to work in the tri-state, which is JFK, New Jersey, and LaGuardia, right? Yeah, right. Because it's the port control those 3 airports, and once you have the breach, you're not allowed to work at all at any of those airports. So it's driving on the airport is not something. It's very, very serious. You know what I mean?
Okay. Another taxiway restriction would be, well, not everybody is trained to operate on the taxiway and get special training for that. But
right,
any vehicle that's going on the taxiway would require two-way communication with ATC at all times operate on the taxiway and on the runway. And I think in Jamaica you need a radio license to be able to communicate, right, Sherry?
Well, can I comment on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, while I was in Jamaica, I know that for you to operate a taxiway, you have to the same exam that you use to drive on a regular driving lane. You have to get additional authorization on your what do you call it, AVOP? They call it the AVOP there, Airport Vehicle Operation Pass, like that. Right. You have to get additional authorization on that pass to go on the taxiway. So, so you know that at Noah Manley, the run-up bay is at I think 30. I'm not sure. Right. So sometimes the mechanics there they do taxi airplanes on the run-ups, and they need to have that on their pass before they can actually the airplane out there.
Right. Just to cut for a second. I'm just gonna see where Sherik is now back on. So that question that you posed, Fabian, I'm just gonna have Sherik close out with that. So Sherik, Fabian's question was if the operators of the cars driving on the airport,
taxiways and runways specifically, not the roadways.
Okay, so taxiways and runways specifically, would they need radio licenses to operate a vehicle on those areas.
The question is for Sharik also.
Yeah,
Can
right,
you
for
hear me?
Sharik. Yeah, we're hearing you now, Sharik.
All right. I'm not sure if it's specific. I mean, you need to have a specific ATC license to speak on the radio, but at our airport, we actually speak on a discrete frequency, which airplanes don't speak on. So I don't think I can clarify. I'm not sure if you need a license, but not everybody is equipped with a radio. But only the persons who are going on the taxiway and the runway, they have to have a radio. But I would have to clarify if they need a radio license. But as I said, it's not an ATC frequency that they operate on.
Okay.
That's a separate frequency. I mean, I know that the person mentioned JFK. At JFK, the vehicles do speak to the ground controller on the ATC frequency, but it's not like that here. There's a separate frequency for that.
Okay. Well, for you're in Jamaica, right, Sharika?
Sharik.
Yeah, Sharik.
Sharik, sorry. You're in Jamaica?
Yes.
Oh, all right. No, why I say that? Because in Jamaica, from what I know, right, to go on the taxiway and or the runway, the airport operation who respond for the taxiway and runway, they are the one who will escort you. As I say, the vehicles, the airline mechanic or whoever is going on the taxiway are request to go on there don't necessarily have the equipment to communicate with tower, but they will provide the escort service for that to happen. And so they will have in their vehicle the direct contact to the ATC when they're doing the escort. The communication. The main thing is that. So the
I
main
never
thing is
got
that.
to happen. To the guy who phones this, was just speaking. I worked out there for almost a year, and there never one time we made a call to tower was escorted. You had to just drive within the lines and go.
On the taxiway?
Yeah, the taxiway that you use from the JDF or from the parking ramp or the wash bay, you want to call it, or Air Jamaica.
Yes, you actually do need.
You don't need any.
Foxtrot.
If you went on Foxtrot without permission, then that's not.
I'm trying to get someone here to unmute their mics. If they could hear me, maybe they could unmute their mic. Xavier, if you can unmute your mic from your end, because it's not our end.
Okay, hello.
Xavier is from Colombia. He's residing in Jamaica right now, and he just started his ground school training.
Yes. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you first to Chris because he invited me to the meeting. As he say, I'm from Colombia. I live in Montego Bay from 1 year ago. I just started 2 months ago the online course with them, also the ground school. And just want to say thank you to the Aeronautical Club because he are following all my steps with this course. And I think that these meetings are so good for all of the people as me that want to start introducing in this process. So thank you for everything, and thank you, Chris, for that.
Great. Thank you so much for the
Richard.
kind words.
Yes,
I'm here.
All right. Sorry,
and thank you to everyone for the explanation and also for this session. Also because in this moment I'm in this unit from the books, so for me it's so useful this class. So thank you for that.
Where you studying doing the training? At CMAS?
And Kingston. I live in Montego. I'm starting in the ground school with Chris at Kingston. I have to go some days, but I'm working.
Right, that's ground at Kingston for the person who is asking. But just want
Richard,
to
before you change this to go back to the other thing, I just clarified with one of the NMIA airport operations officers that you do not require a license to transmit on that frequency. It's just training.
It's training. Okay.
Richard, I have to go. Please take over the meeting.
Right, we're about to wrap now actually, because we're almost halfway past the hour. So Right. Just to close, I want to first give major commendation to Nathan who put together the presentation that was done today. Thank you very much, Nathan. You did an excellent job.
I think so too.
Right. Just want to say again that the Aeronautical Club of the West Indies is not a certified or a licensed flight training institution. So for those of you who want to go and get actual flight or ground training, then we would advise you to go to your local flight school. And if there's a local flight instructor, you'd be able to get official training from them. So I just want to thank everybody who came on our meeting today. I see where we had a steady number of about 27, 28. So just thank you to everybody who came out today. I want to give a special thank you to the aviation professionals, as usual, who always come on and give us major support where we're not able to give. So for a person like myself conducting a meeting like this, I'd love to call on like a Demar or a Gianni or a Craig, for instance, who would be able to give me a professional's perspective on whatever questions that are being asked in this interactive session. So thank you again to the professionals for always turning out and giving support to our meetings. I just want to thank everybody who again came out, and right at this point we're still battling the world pandemic, which is COVID-19. So at this point, I just want to implore to everyone to just stay safe, continue to adhere to the rules set by the government. You know, you're 6 feet apart, wearing your mask in public, sanitize, you know. We just want for all of our club members and prospective club members to stay safe during this time until we're able to meet physically again, until we're able to go flying again. And yeah, just want to basically say that to everyone. So that concludes our session for today. Thanks again to everyone, and we will see you again in 2 weeks.